It's Friday night, and welcome to the Fancast, episode 29, where we talk all things WCBS and other stuff. The show about the show has started. Back tonight for another engagement is Mr. Justin Beck.
Hey guys, I'm glad to be back, and gotta say it, once you've been on the main show, it's kind of hard to be back.
Yep. And you got, didn't they do some Patreon stuff for you recently? Wasn't it the Spider-Man stuff? Wasn't it you?
Yeah, we did two hangouts and commentaries with The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and I know he released the first one. I'm not sure about the second one. I think he did the second one on Patreon so far.
Right. And we can talk about that and your experience with dealing with the main show tonight as well. And also from New York, I had a funny thing I was going to say earlier, but I don't remember what it was. But hey, it's Mr. Liquid Metal Pro. Or not. LMP, you still there?
Yep. Doo, 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 doo. And that's me with a flute up my nose.
All right. And Kendo Slice says he wants to join in. He's finally online. Let's see if he... nope, he didn't accept the call, so I'll try again later. And when he joins, I'll let you know. And I am Brainmuffin, your host, and I tend to, two-thirds of the time I forget to introduce myself. I don't know why. I introduce myself in my videos when I do my online stuff. So first off, let me say... Yep, Lepus Anus. I've actually done that on some of my videos and nobody caught it. Or cared to say. So I want to give a shout back to the main show, World Class Bullshitters. They mentioned me on the episode last night. I got up this morning and I had a bunch of emails from YouTube with new subscribers, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And I had recently got my Echo account. It's an old Twitter account that I used to refer to some other stuff, and you probably need to change the name of it, and if I can. And I thought, well, maybe that was doing it, but I looked at what it was echoing. There was just a lot of quotes from different people. There was only a handful of video. It's one of these things where it just pings something once an hour. But I have over 130 some odd tweets that it can give out, and I haven't even finished building it. But they mentioned me early on. It was great, and I think Kenny has joined us. Say howdy, Kenny. Kendo.
Howdy, Kenny. Kendo.
So, but yeah, I got quite a few new subscribers. In fact, I had to turn that notification off because I was getting too many, which is a good thing. So, thanks a lot, guys. And I did put a link in the timeline to the Fancast homepage, and we'll see how many people come over from that as well. I know, Kendo, you've been the last 2 weeks have been saying, hey, support the Fancast. You've even mentioned that you got your start here, so that was great.
Yeah, I'm willing to pimp you guys out anytime I get a chance.
So, introductions over. One of the biggest things to hit the interwebs the last several days is all of the Star Wars news. It was taken out of China. The excuse train just keeps on trucking. I know, LMP, you had something you want to discuss on that. Apparently, it's not the fans' fault this time. It's Star Wars Theories.
Yeah. So apparently, Film Theory, which is a spin-off from MatPat, famous YouTuber at this point, I guess. I don't know. But he basically has a Film Theory channel, which is a spin-off of his older Game Theory channel, where he does theories on movies, films, and also you already know how that goes. All I can say is for a while he's been putting out content that's been very questionable and could easily be debunked. One example was when he did the Deadpool theory, how to kill Deadpool, when he said something along the lines that, oh, if you were to destroy Deadpool's brain, he would lose his ability to regenerate, which has could clearly be debunked if you actually pick up a Deadpool comic. Deadpool has been decapitated and has also had his head blown clean off, fragments of brain all over the place, and still wakes up with his memories the very next day. So take that as you will. But this was actually posted, and I should actually give credit to Anthony Gilly, who posted this on the Facebook page. It was Film Theory: How Star Wars Theories Killed Star Wars. Basically, the video starts out with MatPat claiming how film theories, particularly a film theory that he put out about Star Wars: The Last Jedi, helped contribute to the fan backlash that we saw on Rotten Tomatoes and on YouTube and other social media sources.
Of course.
God, the sad thing about it was he actually could have made some interesting points. I forgot what this was called. He brought up things like Occam's razor. I forgot there's something's gun or something like that. It's in literature. I forgot what it's called. What he called it.
Chekhov's gun or something like that.
Thank you. That's the one. Chekhov's gun. He brought it up and said how they basically just use things just to use them in the movie, and that kind of didn't pay off in the end. And it's like, yeah, you make some valid points, but the whole thing I got from this was that you kind of felt responsible for why the movie is doing bad. Like, stop giving yourself that much credit.
Yeah, he's the one big egotist.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, it's like a way to kind of be in the center of attention. Hey, it's my fault. You know, this is this narcissistic response, right? And I actually saw some videos like this a few days ago, and probably even a week ago. Different people have done, and that's one of the excuses that people give that people don't like it. The lovers of the movie say, "Well, it's just you're just mad because your theories weren't proven." You know, I didn't speculate at all as to who was what, and I was looking forward to getting some answers. But I wasn't expecting any, even if Jar Jar was doing this whole trilogy, just based on what he's done in the past. You know, Cloverleaf, the first one was a pretty good movie. The second one wasn't. He's not a good storyteller. He's a good setup of ideas. I know I give him crap for Lost a lot, but, you know, he only got that series going and then went off and did Alias. And I don't know how much input he had in the story. But that strung me along for, 5 seasons, and then I was just really disappointed because it was kind of like a bit of a snooker at the end. This is what it felt like. And so, you know, for Rian Johnson to come along and basically, you know, there's been several, I don't remember if it was Kendo, I think it was Kendo, I mean, last week or 2 weeks ago, right? He was all just, you know, it was all just fuck all this. And now, you know, it was like these two got into a tiny wiener measuring contest and decide who's got the smaller one. And, you know, it's like, okay, Jar Jar, you set up all this stuff. I'm just going to take a big dump on it. It's almost like they looked at all the fan theories and thought, we can't possibly let a single one of these be correct, or they're just going to go nuts on YouTube. And so they basically said, nope, you're all wrong. There's nothing to it. It's a bit of a cop-out. It's not a good storytelling. And to me, to start seeing videos of people, especially one where they're beating their own chest and say, I'm the reason that the backlash. No, the backlash is purely from the movie standpoint. I have read pages upon pages of negative comments on Rotten Tomatoes, and I've said this multiple times, and I read some since last week's show, and not a single one of them is, well, my theories were wrong, so they're stupid, so I'm voting it down. It's based around just how you tell a story, where the trilogy needs to be, in a 3-movie story arc, what setup was not dealt with, the heavy-handed SJW messaging. It's not, I haven't seen one person say, well, you know, I really wanted Snoke to be Plagueis reincarnated, and I wanted Rey to be, you know, Luke's daughter from an illegitimate, you know, I imagine there might be 1 or 2 people out there, but that's not what I've seen. And what the videos that I've watched previously of people that said, well, my theories were wrong, they were disappointed that they weren't wowed. That, hey, my ideas were so small compared to what really happened, what the movie makers wanted to do, and I am just in awe of their ability to tell a better story or a better idea than I have. I mean, that's the take I got from a lot of these people that were like, you know, it's like, man, I had better ideas, and I'm just a hack on YouTube. They were like disappointed. So anyway, yeah, I hadn't watched that video yet. Unfortunately, I didn't have time, but yeah, I think it's just another narcissistic way to get attention, really.
It almost reminded me. I think it was. I don't remember if somebody posted it on the same Facebook page or if it was. I really don't remember who brought it up, but I think it was a video by Monday Matt where he tried to do a similar thing, saying how the movie failed and he's disappointed it failed because he doesn't want the industry to fail. And I just remember having the same opinion at that time. Like, oh, come on, like, stop making this about you. Okay, you had your moment, you had your peak. Your quality is crap, and just be lucky that you have a large enough fan base. Just stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
My questions for some of these people are, for like who defend this movie is, what do you gain out of it? Oh, you like a movie? Whoop-de-doo.
I don't know. That's actually a very good question. I really wish I had an answer for that.
I mean, I get like the channels that like Monday Matt and all that. Oh, they get like maybe some like advanced screenings and all that. But like for like everyday people that I see like in the comment sections of like some of these videos, it's like, what do you gain from it?
Again, I wish I had a good answer. I mean,
Well, they gain hits and views. That's what they gain from it.
True. There's that.
Subscribers.
But
They want to be, some of these YouTubers have been, I know some of the advanced screening and stuff. They got to go to the advanced screenings, and they got maybe some piece of memorabilia, that's only given out to people at advanced screening, and then they get to be on YouTube and say, "Look what I have, and you don't have," kind of thing. So it's kind of like they're looking for, not justification, but they're looking for, hey, my efforts are paying off, and Disney is recognizing me, kind of thing. It's like, why did that guy, what's his nuts, do the video in the suicide cemetery in Japan? Look at what a lot of these videos that are popular that get 2 million views. And this guy's doing stupid stuff. I'm going to jump off this 4-story building. I mean, look at the movies, the show, and then the movies Jackass, all the things that they do.
But hey, man, Jackass was cultural, is good quality cultural entertainment, man. Let's not compare the two now.
No, but it kind of started the trend of, hey, I can be dumber than you. I mean, this is why all this Tide Pod nonsense is. People eating these things. Really? I mean, we had the ice bucket challenge and different things, but that was for ALS, and you were supposed to make a donation and then dump a water of ice in your bucket of cold water in your head, and people were just doing that. There was
that was
the one chip challenge. Some of it's Me Tooism, and sometimes it's kind of like people want to feel a part of a bigger whole when it's really just kind of made up. I think that the ultimate stupidity here is the Tide Pod, although apparently the 10 people that have died from it were either infants or older people who have had senility, so they got confused. So infants who didn't, babies who didn't know what it was, and mom and dad had it within their reach, and then old people who, whose minds are gone. But still, it's just so dumb,
Okay, before you continue, I do have to ask something. What exactly is this challenge? Because this doesn't really sound familiar to me at all.
The Tide Pod challenge?
Yeah.
Well, Tide Pods, you know what a Tide Pod is?
You mean the Tide, like the Tide, like the detergent brand,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Oh, God, no.
So they have a pod that I believe has, I know it has detergent. I think it has a non-chlorine bleach, and I think a fabric softener. And so,
Yeah, something like that. I use it all the time.
Right. So it dissolves, at different rates. Well, these idiots are putting them in their mouths and trying to eat them. Of course, most of them are spitting them out or puking or anything like that, because it is poisonous. And there's things that'll burn. I mean, the bleach will. Well, I know it's non-chlorine, but it's still. I think it's an alkaline-based bleach. It's still going to feel like it's burning when it hits water. The saliva in your mouth. But it's like, well, so and so YouTuber did it. I'm gonna. It's like Casey Nutbag. Why does he have I don't know why people even watch his videos. Here I am on vacation with my family in Venice. Don't you wish you could be here and be as cool as I am? I don't. I know they're popular, and I don't get it. I guess people want to live vicariously through his experiences, but to the point where you're just going to watch videos all day long. I was never big on the fan, the sycophantic fan, right? Where I'm going to feign, oh my gosh, it's so and so, and oh, they're so. I never got into that, so I don't understand that mentality. I mean, it's nice to know people who are famous, and hey, sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had their talent or whatever. But I've met different people over the years, and even when I met, what's his name? Shoot, Joe Theismann. Oh, good grief! I must have been 12 or I guess 13 years old, maybe 14, somewhere.
Had his leg been snizapped already?
No, not yet. That was a few years in his future. Because that happened when I was in Germany, I think, and we lived in Virginia. But yeah, it must have been 81, 80 or 81. My brother won something from MS Readathon and got picked to go to a Diplomats game, which we were going to go to the soccer game, but somebody had already prepaid for the, meet some of the athletes from different, because that was when the Washington basketball team was still called the Washington Bullets, and the Capitals hockey team and the Redskins. And for some reason they couldn't go, and they couldn't refund their money, so they called us and say, hey, do you want to go before then? And it was nice meeting them, but I didn't, follow them around. I mean, I got my picture taken. I think I got a handful of autographs. I don't even know where any of that stuff is anymore. But I wasn't like, oh, tell me about this and tell me about that. I wasn't that kind of person. I ended up kind of just talking to people, drinking ginger ale. The main thing I remember is drinking a lot of ginger ale. So, so I was, not quite 13, I guess. But and I had that picture, and people was, you met Joe Theismann? Oh my gosh, what's he like? I'm like, I was just at a function for 2 hours with him, right? I don't know. I think pretty much he puts his underwear on the same way we do, and takes a dump the same way we do, and yeah, they have talent, but after all, they're people, and they're not hugely different. We all have our different abilities. So.
Well, the key word you said was talent. Nowadays, you don't really have to have talent to. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that there were exceptions to the rule, even back then, and even way before back then. But nowadays, it's almost like the norm. Just video, camera, just say something dumb, give a dumb reaction to something that someone else created, and you get popularity because of it. Like, just look at how popular reaction channels got on essentially being famous for reacting to someone else's work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's
well, the reaction videos, yeah. I mean, all these people do reaction videos to a trailer. Like, you go watch a movie trailer. It's usually Star Wars or any of the Marvel stuff, and all 30 suggested videos are reaction trailers, or reaction videos to people watching the trailer. And then within a few days, a week, you'll start seeing videos of someone who's taken those reaction trailers and spliced them together in some way, either one after the other, all of them synced up by a time frame, and so you've got like a Brady Bunch looking board with 4 of them or 6 of them or something, and it's like, it's like, have you ever watched any of the People Are Awesome videos where people, I mean, some of the things that people are doing is pretty incredible. They might be skiing or skateboarding or doing pull-ups with 2 fingers or something, but all of these, I haven't watched one in a while, but I watch them sometimes, suggestions like, is this the same video? Because they always have a different thumbnail. And it's amazing how often it's the same, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes of content that's spliced into multiple 6-minute videos. Different order, But they'll have 2 million views. And I'm like, and it's the same 8 tunes all the time. So, anyway. So, Justin, you got any other things you want to say about that? I haven't been speaking much, so I'm getting kind of bogarting the mic here.
Well, what were you talking about again?
Well, we started with the Star Wars. Hey, it's my fault that The Last Jedi sucks. And we just kind of went into idiots on YouTube, I guess.
Well, essentially, he is, in my opinion, an idiot on YouTube. Like you've outlived your peak on YouTube, and you're just now grasping at straws. Like I said, I find it amazing how people who have a large enough fan base to just just appreciate the fact to even still have that large enough fan base, because I know one of the things that you wanted to mention was about the YouTube monetization thing going on.
Yep.
And well, I really don't know too much about it. I mean, I really need to be more clued into this. I really had a chance to follow this one.
So I can give you a lot of details because I got the email.
Go ahead.
So YouTube is changing now. YouTube has been bleeding cash for years. Part
That's
of why
true.
Google bought them is because they were about to go bankrupt. And from a technical side, I can really appreciate how much it costs to have a big enough internet pipe to handle video requests from all over the world. I think I don't know if they still are. I think at one time they were on Amazon's S3 cloud for distribution, but none of that's cheap. You have to have servers with very fast storage, probably a tier, multiple tiered storage. I don't know if you've ever clicked on a video that looks, that takes a few seconds to get started, and then when you look at the comments, no one's commented on it in 2 years. Well, at that point, it's probably been promoted to the lowest storage tier, and so it takes a while. Or if something has been recorded at too high a bit rate, I've seen stutter. Now, it's highly unlikely when I'm at home that the problem is my internet connection. It can't happen. I have too big a pipe. But some of it may be that the server is, wherever it's being served from, is just too overworked at the moment. So I can appreciate that, and I understand from that standpoint. So, but it comes at on the heels of YouTube demonetizing videos one by one. I've had several of my beer reviews demonetized. Some, I guess a secondary algorithm came along and remonetized them. Some are still not monetized. So when that first started happening, and Jeff even talked about it on the main show, you have to have 1,000 views of that video before they'll review it. And there are scores of videos that I have a lot of videos that don't have 1,000 views. Now I have videos that have 38,000 views, and I have some that have like 20 over 3 years. So it is very strange how people find stuff, and Twitter's been shadow banning, and there's been some evidence that YouTube has done things like that too, where you post a video, how come no one sees it, can find it? And what's interesting about this time is they're saying if you have fewer than 1,000 subscribers, or you have fewer than 4,000 hours over a 12-month period of viewing time, they're going to auto demonetize you. And basically it's going to happen in 30 days. Now that was several days ago, so it's probably a little more like 25 days now.
Yeah.
More or less mid-February time frame. And if you then after that get back to the required amounts, they are going to review your request for monetization with a higher standard. Now there's been no publication of what that standard is, and you got to remember with the infamous Google memo and all the crap that's going on there, and they're the parent company. There's some conspiracy-minded people who are, so say Paul Joseph Watson or Alex Jones or somebody, that think some of that is that. I've watched several videos from some very smaller channels than mine, people with 200 subscribers, and every video has like 20 views. So I don't really understand what kind of money they were making. I mean, I've been averaging about $7 to $9 every 28 days for about 3 months now. My particular channel, I'm just under 500 subscribers, and I'm at just over 2,000 hours of view time over a 12-month period. So I'm like right in the middle. This is part of why when Nick said, just play my videos. Yeah, you go click a playlist. Best way to do it is turn your ad blockers off. Click a playlist. If you click either the supplement reviews or the beer reviews, especially the beer reviews, you've got, I don't even know how many hours. It's 130 some odd videos, I think it is, and they're all average about 7 minutes, 6 to 7 minutes. That's going to take a long time. And one way you know if YouTube is still playing, I've noticed this on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Your screensaver does not kick on if you have the browser up on as the main window. You don't have to have it full screen or anything, but just have the browser up. If you do hey, I just want to kind of plow through, let's say you click on one of my videos and you put autoplay on, it will go for a while, but eventually YouTube will notice you're not interacting with the video and it'll pause until you move your mouse. So somehow they're able to detect, they're doing a mouse over type thing on their entire screen. So they know you haven't done anything. But playlists so far don't do that. So it's not only mine. If you want to do it on the Fancaste, click a playlist. There's each one of these things, an hour and a half, 2 hours. You can do the same thing for WCBS. But the real big key is to turn ad blockers off while you're doing that. And I have, on my Linux machine, I don't have any ad blockers at all in Firefox. And there are times that I've just let it play and turn the screen off and go to bed, just to try and help. I've done it with my videos. I've done it with the Fancast as well as the main show and other small channels that I've come across that I like what they do and I like their efforts. And if they have a playlist, I'll click on it and just let it run overnight. So I don't know, obviously, how much that really helps, but part of what's starting to happen with small content people like myself is we're starting to band together and we're starting to subscribe to each other as well. I don't really know how much help it's going to be, but the big thing to take note here is the large channels. You will be hard pressed, other than say something like Alex, like I said, the Alex Jones or Stefan Malnu, people who have basically been, or Milo or somebody, people who have basically been demonetized already. You're not going to find anybody who's monetized speaking out about this, and that's where the conspiracy-minded, I think people are afraid that if they speak out and say solidarity with the little people, they're going to get whacked. I don't know how true that is, but it feels like that's kind of the environment right now. So it is what it is, as they say. What'll be interesting to see, because even with some growth, I probably won't make the cutoff, but I am hopeful. When that does happen, I will be able to check and see if ads still play, and I suspect they will, because even videos that have been single-handedly demonetized on my channel, when I look at them on other browsers, especially when I'm not on my home network, so the originating IP address is not the same, I see ads all the time. Even videos that I've never monetized, I see ads. So I think some of it's a cost-cutting measure, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's undercurrents of other reasons why they're doing it. So
I mean, to me, it seems a little bit. I mean, I remember you sent me a video. What was it, last week through Twitter? It was something that happened here in New York City where the government was finding delis that were selling cigarettes for less than retail price, which sounds really. It sounds like such a strong arm move, because if you're the business, you choose what to sell the product at what price. There's no reason why any government or any governing body should tell you, hey, look, you're going to get fined, I don't know, and it's usually something in the triple or 4 digits or something like that, or even higher, for selling cigarettes, what was it, less than 40 cents, what they usually go for in the store. And I'm like, so what? That guy's don't get interfering. And I'm kind of getting that same vibe here with YouTube. It's kind of like, hey, look, let's take down the smaller businesses. Let's take down the smaller channels. The ones that, that the these larger, the larger channels. They're in cahoots or they're colluding with one another, or some major company like Disney, just for example. The smaller ones, that may not necessarily be the case. They'll probably be more honest, more open to speak out, less that they have to lose. And to me, it sounds like they're just trying to rid them out, because one, they figure, okay, hey, one, it's a waste of someone occupying space that is already very limited. But then it's also like, well, let's kill two birds with one stone. those people that are likely to speak out not only against our actions, but also against the actions of others that we do business with. Let's get them out of the picture also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's some of that.
Yeah, there's some of that. If it was like more threatening to get rid of channels, then yeah, I would totally agree with you on that one. But
I mean, and you said what was it that it was gonna it was gonna happen what mid-February, right?
Yeah, well, it was 30 days. I think I got the email Monday, Monday or Tuesday. I forget what day I got it.
So roughly like what, 4 weeks and some days.
Yeah, it's 4 weeks and 2 days. 30 days is 4 weeks and 2 days.
No, I've been doing my math wrong then. But it just seems
4 times
rather
7
odd.
is 28, man.
Well, hey, I'm just saying, isn't that the week that wouldn't that be the week that Black Panther comes out?
oh god,
I don't know.
That's just saying. That seems
that's why.
kind of
Are you
that it
trying
would
to
be
say
happening
they
right
only send it to
before
white people? Is that what you're saying?
I am. You can't stop me. Shit, they're coming. All right, guys, they're taking me away now. Oh, this is it for me on the. This is it for me on the Fancast. I'm being walked away in cuffs now. YouTube monetization police got me. All right, that's it. Goodbye. No, I mean that might sound very conspiracy theorist on my part, and I would even say that on my part. But I'm just saying, I don't know. Maybe maybe that might be the case. But you did say 30 days, and I just thought about it. I'm like, wait a second, mid-February, and I know what comes out mid-February. That almost seems a bit suspicious, but at the same time, kind of like maybe it's just a coincidence. But then again, what was it like? All these coincidences that have been happening lately around the world have been having some sort of like. There's been more truth to that than meets the eye. So who knows? Maybe I might be right.
Well, I'm echoing. So release date for Black Panther is the 16th of February. If I'm right, it was Monday. There's 31 days in January, so 30 days would be the 14th of February. So that week, definitely.
Yeah, and the movie would come out. The movie actually technically will come out Thursday night, the night before, on the 15th, because they'll probably do like late showings or like early showings for people.
Or like 12:01 or something. Or
yeah,
right.
So
probably.
I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into it too much, but then again, like it's not uncommon to hear, for example, like with Ghostbusters, like there was an embargo against bad reviews, I believe it was, or something like that, and like they weren't allowing certain people to put out their reviews early. Like you had to like sign some crap or something like that, I heard. And it's not just them. There was also other things that got, like video games and such, that went through similar things as well. So I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if there is like an end game goal in this monetization plan.
Yeah.
Keep talking. I'm choking to death.
Well, that's basically it. I'm just saying, I really can't say with certainty, oh, it's because of Black Panther of all things. But at the same time, I'm just gonna say, you know what? With all the controversy that movie's been getting, and what was it? I think it was like last week something was mentioned on the main show about how there was that one person that wanted to do I think it was a Patreon or something to get Black people to go watch Black Panther because it's like the first major Black superhero movie, and I'm like,
yeah, I thought that was like somebody in Harlem or something.
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, like,
me.
Yeah,
it's a GoFundMe, thanks. But I'm like, haven't these people watched Blade? Oh, Wesley Snipes is awesome.
No, plus that was too long ago.
Yeah, of course. That's what it's all about. It ain't about the past. It's always about the now.
And there were too many white people in that movie or something. I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of goofy excuse like that.
Hey, number 3 had Triple H in it. And I may not like Triple H that much, but it was okay.
Right.
Like in The Last Jedi, you got to kill the past. You got to
Exactly.
get it.
Scorch the earth.
Yeah.
Don't look back. You'll turn to salt.
Yeah. something like
Oh
that.
wow. I don't know where I got that from. I really don't.
That's an interesting idea. So
What? Turning back and turn it to salt?
no. Yeah, your conspiracy alignment, I think, is just a coincidence. It is if it's around Valentine's Day too, so you could also, make a reference there. Where's the love for small channels, and to me it feels, I don't know what the rates. I know that they've demonetized a bunch of people's stuff months ago that they found slightly offensive, and sometimes it was because of a sexual nature or whatever, but sometimes it was just frank talk about stuff. It wasn't, but language and a bunch of other things. And I remember one of mine got flagged. I watched the closed caption and it thought I was cussing when I wasn't. So, I don't know. But there are other alternatives that are starting to come up. There's minds.com, which I don't know if you can still upload videos yet. There was VidMe, but it shut down. It couldn't make it on its pay structure. So, because I was putting a lot of videos up there, and and then it got shut down like 2 month ago, something. I mean, it was in December, I think, or I forget now. So, but again, a lot of it gets to how expensive it is. To now we've got 4K and all this other stuff. Audio is not too bad to do, and with today's computers and internet speeds, but video is still quite expensive. So, and it's, I can't imagine what I think they probably have distributed, but when you have, gigabit backplanes now and 10 gigabit backplanes, and you can actually have 10 gigabit, networking in your house, that's a lot of bandwidth. So, anyway,
Yeah.
Anything anybody else wants to say about any of those, the whole line of consciousness there?
No,
I'm
I'm good.
wrong. I admit it.
All right. So, is there any other, before we go change topics, any other Star Wars related? I mean, we have the Solo movie. We had a synopsis, which basically told us more or less what we already knew was going to be in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I read that when it came out. I'm like, yeah, well, that's the backstory of Solo, right? You get that just by watching the first two movies. You get his scoundrel past, his womanizing ways. He met Chewie sometime, and he had a life, a blood bond with him because he saved his life. Although they may or may not have it that way. Now they may change history. He meets, Lando, and he go way back. I mean, that's a quote. Empire Strikes Back. Lando and me, we go way back. So we know that he had something to do with the Imperial Navy at one point. That was discussed, and I forget exactly where, but because that's part of the pants that he wears, at least in the first movie. So, no trailer, no teaser trailer. They're still doing reshoots. Even Disney is saying how much, the expectations are being lowered so much. It's
It's already expected to fail at this point.
Right. Well,
and that's like kind of funny because like all the excuses for like The Last Jedi and all this stuff, it's like for like, I don't know, for like months I've been hearing like, oh, this movie is like expected to do less, and this movie is expected to do less. And now we got to the point where the Solo is expected to bomb. So it's like, where's like your leg to stand on with these new Star Wars movies?
Right. And that is a thing that's it's interesting because I don't know how much of it's the backlash because of The Next Jedi, how much of it's because of all the rewrites, all the turmoil. Maybe it'll still be a decent movie, but with the way Kathleen is running the ship at Lucasfilm, and the way she didn't like the direction that was going before, and then seeing like the big cluster that the Suicide Squad was, when you reshoot half the movie. I don't know. It's well, LMP, you were talking about how with Ghostbusters there was a moratorium on negative reviews and stuff. I got the same impression with The Last Jedi. Because why in the world did the critic score drop so much? Now, a few days ago it went up one more point. So it's back up to 91, which is kind of weird. But people say, well, Warner owns Rotten Tomatoes, but it takes in all of those critics and their scores and things. So all Disney has to do is kind of put pressure on critics outside of the system, so that when they get pulled in, you get a 95 or 96%, right? Do you want early access to the next 3 Marvel movies? Do you want to see this movie? They don't have to pay them directly, but there's a lot of people whose livelihoods rely on being able to get access. Mm-hmm. And if Disney says, well, we didn't really like what you did in this review, so they're not going to be honest. They're too scared. I mean, look what's happening now with all of the various sexual misconduct allegations. You have people who are being accused. One person will say something, well, so-and-so touched me inappropriately, and they have whole contracts that are that are canceled. There's no necessarily any evidence. There's no charge of a crime. And unfortunately, the women who have been assaulted, it kind of weakens, it's the cry wolf syndrome. If you have been assaulted by somebody, that's one thing. But he touched the small of my back, or he touched my butt. It's not he grabbed it and held on for 5 seconds. It was an inappropriate brush.
Yeah. And honestly, it's gotten to the point where I remember a while back. This was during the when I was first becoming aware of what essentially SJWs were, and it was a bit of a revelation, because it was like, damn, I actually used to agree with these people at one point, and now it's completely different. Now it's like, if they make a point, they make a point, but I do not approve of their methods. But I remember when I first started hearing about it, like how they wanted to like redefine what rape meant, what were the circumstances of rape. For example, like if a woman had sex and later regretted it with a man, that could be considered rape. And some other stuff, like they were trying to rewrite the laws. Like, for example, if you stared at them a certain way, that could be considered sexual assault. And it's funny because, when I went to college, we had lawyers talk at our classes sometimes, and they would explain to us, hey, look, like basically what their job was, and how like a little thing could potentially lead to a bigger lawsuit. So it's like, for example, if you spoke to a person a certain way, it could be considered assault. Like if you looked at someone inappropriately, sexual misconduct, and like it was just like all these umbrella terms, and like, hey, this word can literally mean anything at that point if you just knew. And they said it themselves, like how they would spin the narrative to either defend the client, or if they were prosecution to do that. And it's I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of bullshit going on with some of these claims. But then I also feel like let's face it, a lot of them happen to be the very same people who were pushing this listen and believe crap, kind of getting a little bit of their I won't say medicine coming back to them, but a little bit of their own agenda coming to bite them back in the ass. So yeah, I don't know how to feel about it, is basically what I'm trying to get at.
Well,
I really don't.
I know how I feel about it. For the women who have been, now granted, I know there's been some people talking, well, why did you wait 15 years to come out? I get either people were afraid for their careers, or they were afraid to speak out. I mean, I can understand that. I just don't want the men or women, but the scumbags will just say, who have done the assaulting, whether it was, whatever level of the actual sexual assault it's been, that is kind of, I'd like to see some people prosecuted, not just, done in the court of public opinion. And some of it's statute of limitations. I get it. They probably can't be. But I don't like the narrative that's diluting the actual victims. And depending on the environment, some things happen. There's people that you're touching or whatever. The Al Franken picture, to me, it was a stupid sophomoric stunt, but he's not touching her. He's pretending to touch her. And so, to me, that's far less offensive than if he just came up to some woman and fully compressed everything on their boobs and or butt, whatever, unwanted, continuous touching. But that might be sexual misconduct, but it's not,
assault.
Well, it's assault in a legal definition because assault is you are touching somebody else.
I meant the picture.
I know, but
wasn't touching. Then yeah,
right. But it's not equal to rape or any of the other or forced sex. And you're right. There are some, and this has been on the feminist side. I know Lindsey Green. I think Lindsey Green. Is it Lindsey Green? Anyway, she did.
Think about Lacey Green.
Lacey Green, yeah, she did something a couple of years ago before she started to wake up. All she did was want to talk to the other side and got lambasted by her own people, and that's what kind of woke her up. Wait a minute, what the heck's going on here? Why can't we have a discussion? Why can't we disagree and come to a mutual understanding? And maybe we just have to agree to disagree, but maybe there's something to either side's argument. But I remember one of her videos. I didn't see. I was watching someone else's video, and they referenced it, where she was talking about, hey, if you're too drunk to drive, you're too drunk to consent to sex, and I can kind of understand, where that mindset's coming from because you may not be out of, but it's like, don't get that drunk, and Jesus. It's different if
Exactly.
if you're drugged, somebody slips you a Mickey or something, and to me that's far more nefarious and perhaps an illegal thing, but we had Right. Well, now what people are saying, I've even read some articles where people are saying, well, I had sex with a guy 6 months ago, and now I regret it, and so he raped me. I'm like, no, he didn't. You had consent. Now, was there some misconduct in the way of come on, if you love me kind of thing? But that's, to equate that to some woman who gets surprised, in an alleyway somewhere, gets knocked to the ground, has her clothes ripped off of her enough, and is assaulted in that fashion.
Very vivid.
That's just not. That's not a legal equivalence.
Well, I mean, it would be like, I don't know. This is kind of some fucked up thinking on my part, but then again, when isn't that a shock? Shock. Imagine that. But like, for example, like the level of retardation, like, hey, we're going to change the definition of rape. Why wouldn't we do something dumb, just as dumb, where we change the definition of abortion? Like, hey, I had a child, but 30 years later, I regret that child's existence, so let me abort him now. And, we won't call it murder. We'll just call it an abortion, and it's all legal. Like, and you know what? Maybe let me not even throw that idea out there, because that could possibly come a reality at some point with the way things are as in this world.
Yeah, there's some crazies out there that would actually do that.
Yeah, and they don't even need me to point that out, which is what's scarier.
Yeah.
But
yep.
I don't know, man, and it's we're living in some really strange times.
That we are. We definitely are. So, all right. Well, let's go on to some happier type topics, maybe.
Finally,
let's talk about some of the Marvel stuff. So, the Marvel Inhumans talk about a failure to launch.
Done.
Done and done, apparently. No one's got any other thoughts? I never saw it. So, I mean, I saw like a trailer or something and thought, boy, that just looks stupid.
Yeah, same here. I didn't even know what they were.
Honestly, I didn't even know the Inhumans for the longest time were Marvel. I honestly thought they were like, if they weren't DC, they were something else, until I found out they were a Marvel property. I'm like, never cared for them. Never saw any interest in them. I know some people I knew who read the comics try to get me into them, but I was like, nah. I'm not much of a comic guy. Like, I'm not the biggest comic fan out there, but I enjoyed the X-Men more. Always have, and that was just my preference. So, Inhumans, essentially, because Marvel essentially shafted the X-Men, especially considering that Fox owned the film rights to the X-Men, the Mutants, Deadpool, you name it, right? So, yeah. glad to hear the news, but at the same time, I'm a bit disappointed because I'm like, well, now Disney has the film rights to X-Men again, so you know what? I'm just gonna take this short win for what it is.
All right. Yeah, I know when the whole controversy of the show and all that stuff, I went and looked. I hadn't heard of them, but I haven't, like I said before, I haven't really paid that much attention to comics in a long, long time, and I was just kind of like, okay. And then I realized some of their backstory, and then I watched the trailer, and I was like, yeah, it just looks stupid, and it failed. So, anyway. So, Mr. Beck.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a chance to talk a little bit. So you are a patron, and you got to do a Patreon hangout for two movies. You suggested the movies. And so tell us, what you can. I mean, obviously don't divulge things that are on the Patreon feed as far as comments and things, but to kind of explain a little bit what it was like, how it was set up, how you guys did it, what your thoughts on it were.
It was kind of a nervous thing at first when I was kind of like waiting for like the call, and then when it happened, I was just like slowly calming down because I was like, I don't know how like they're gonna be. It's like they do feel like, and they do feel like it's like, I mean, you guys, I mean, like you and Kenny, of course, know that, but they are like exactly how they are in the podcast in real life. As you talk to them on Skype.
Well, yeah, and, I met most of them in real life, and they pretty much are. Well, weren't you on the you were on the big show, on the main show twice, weren't you?
No, I haven't. I tried to, but
okay. I thought you were on there with us one time.
Yeah, I tried to at one point, but I think the first fan appreciation happened like a day before I was going on vacation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the second one is kind of I misjudged the day, so I took the wrong day off. So.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought, I know we've been on this show, but I thought you had been on that one before too. Because there was a I think there was a 1 year anniversary, and then there was show 100.
Yeah.
Which I don't think the We're Sorry video ever came out. I know I saw bits and pieces that Phil and Jeff were recording. But that was a very strange night. 100 was one of these things where it sounded like a great idea. It felt like it was going to be great, and it wasn't completely horrible, but it was a bit of a disconjointed mess because the chemistry. 2017 was a very interesting year for WCBS, where at the beginning of the year you had 8 people, 7 people, and then Loudy started not showing up, and then Dustin took a break for a while and kind of came back. You had Phil. You had the spinoff of the of Ring Rust, and that's how Kendo got picked up for that. And then he went from this show to Ring Rust to the main show, and then
they were rebooting it 3 times.
Right. Hey, I listened. I must say that once Jeff and Kendo weren't on there, it was the other 3. Dan in particular is somebody you got to have a good host who can draw stuff out, because he'll talk, but he won't just talk to speak out too much. And he's that same way in person. There are times you don't even remember he's in the car, and then all of a sudden he'll say something. Oh yeah, there you are, Dan.
Sounds a lot like me, actually.
Yeah. So there was a bit of a personality thing there too. So.
But it was going back to the hangout, it was, like I said, it was actually kind of fun. I honestly, like, anyone who is a Patreon and has their, like, on the levels, actually do this, because it actually is kind of fun. Even, like, I'll say this, for the second one, it was really tiring. It was like Kendo and Nick half the time, and like I was chiming in here and there, and Jeff, as he said in the last podcast, he fell asleep during the middle of it. But like generally, it was still like a fun experience overall. Like I can't even see like the first one right now because I was like when I was trying to, I was just like, oh, I just couldn't stop smiling because I was like remembering all like the fun time I had like talking to those two.
No, sorry, I keep muting myself, but yeah, I listened to part of the first one because I think it was started on Patreon, and I think they put it eventually on YouTube. I don't remember if it was on YouTube or not, but I mean,
Yeah,
I'm on
it was
Patreon too,
pretty
so
quickly.
sometimes I don't remember, especially when I listen on my phone. I just hit the button and then I forget if I'm on Podbean or if I'm on YouTube or where I am. But yeah, that's the Patreon hangout. That's the Patreon hangout. That's a great idea. It's a good way to interact with people from the show, especially if you're a little bit on the shy side. I find it a lot easier to talk in front of a mic where we're not seeing each other than to be, say, live in studio, as it were.
Yeah.
And anybody that sent, I have been post. I think I have one more beer review to post, if I remember correctly, that we did at Phil's house over for the Christmas party. I think that one is Jeff and Phil and I know Jeff and I are in there, but I think it's Phil. I'm not sure. But Dan does show up. He didn't want to do any of those. He does walk by in one of the post-credit scenes, as it were. And, pretty much we just, we hit record and we rolled. And I did an introduction, and then we had a pause, and then we just went by. And those guys are, I met most of them in March of last year down in Atlanta for Nick's movie that they begrudgingly talk about now because of some things that happened between, I think Bob Clark was the guy's name, and I can't wait to. I'm hoping that when I'm down in Atlanta 2 weeks from now, so we do have a thing to talk about off air about what we're going to do on that Friday, the 2nd of February. So, because I'm going to the Days of the Dead, and I'm hoping to be able to talk to Nick about it a little bit more in detail, and. I was there for that premiere, and I met most of them down there, and then obviously the out-of-town ones I haven't met. But we'll see. But yeah, it was a very interesting year because I think, if I remember correctly, it was something like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers. Now it's closing on 10. Or did they go over 10? For some reason, I thought they went over 10. Anybody know off the top of their heads?
Like where they are right now?
I'm looking it up.
Like 12, 14.
Oh, 14,000. Yeah, okay. So maybe it was something like 4,000 beginning of the year. I know once things got rolling, it was really interesting momentum. And then even before The Last Jedi hit, they had some serious momentum. And post Jedi, it really came to fruition, as it were. So it's great.
Yeah.
And while we've been talking, I got another subscriber on my channel. Woohoo!
Right.
So the shout outs are working. That's great.
More beer reviews.
Right. And people have asked about the timeline. Basically, I started doing it for 2 reasons. 3 shy of 500. So come on, Schwartz.
He really needs the money.
Yeah, somebody kept asking for a timeline. And when preparing for this show, I found myself skipping around trying to remember some of the things that when I actually had time. And I did one kind of on a whim, and I realized how much it actually can help me with this show. And so many times the way the timestamps are is so that I can find it when I have to review something quickly. And we talk before the show what we're going to do, and then I want to remember what was said, and so I can click right to it. Now, sometimes it is very difficult because there'll be kind of a swirling of topics, and I can't, it's 10, 20 seconds and maybe a minute, and then it's 20 seconds, it's another one, and so that gets a little too tight. But I do try to sum those up if the discussion kind of meanders. So you'll see things like a such and such swerve, or they, rant off into the wilderness or something. And that's why it's there. So and some days I'm able to get to it pretty early from work, and other days it's in the afternoon sometimes. So because usually what happens is I listen to it at home while I'm getting ready, and so I have a general idea of the breakdown, and then I listen to it over the next probably 3 hours between what I'm doing, interruptions, meetings, and the like, and put the times in, and then send it. And the last several times, Jeff has not had to approve it, but the first few times, because the number of links that are in there, he's had to. It gets flagged as spam. So I don't know if because he approved it enough, it doesn't. But today it didn't, and I had several links in there. So.
Yeah.
But it's a nice thing, and I do it when I can. I've actually done it on some older videos, but I had too much other crap going on once the winter got here to do too many of those. So, but it's good. It's a nice little exercise for me. See how well I can pay attention. So,
Yeah.
because sometimes I'll be like, oh wait a minute, Dion just changed topics. When the heck was it? And then I'll back it up and well, he did that 2 minutes ago. Oh crap. So, but I'm glad people like it and can jump around in the video and get to the topics they want, or if there's a topic that it's boring or they don't really care, they can skip to the next one. And Jeff's right. If he did it, it'd probably be introduction, news, main topic, out. So,
Yeah.
so, and they haven't done the games in a while. So,
No, not really.
there's been too much to chat about in their 90-minute format to get in the main feature. So,
Oh, definitely.
So, and we've done some of those on here. We haven't done one in a while either, because again, when Eric and LMP get going, I just kind of listen.
Definitely.
So, can you imagine Eric and Frank talking for a while?
That could be an entire episode on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Some beer, drunk and listen in the back.
all right. So, any other comments you want to make, Justin, with that, with your experience? Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, it was nice to hear them talk about something that wasn't Star Wars, honestly. Because, like, we did have, like, a small talk with Star Wars, just basically saying during, like, the break in between both movies. And it was just basically, yeah, the fans don't understand that liking a movie isn't the same as the movie being good. And that was it. So I think that's the shortest time they'll ever talk about Star Wars.
Yeah, but they made a great point with that. It's just because you like something doesn't necessarily mean that it's good.
Yeah.
Be amazed how many times I shan't offer like it's some basically pointing out flaws and stuff that people really like and getting called a hater and everything, which I don't know. I just think maybe I just feel passionately about things that I like. And while it's not necessarily it's not necessarily a great thing, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but try explaining that to other people.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyone, seriously, I really recommend you, if you do have a Patreon, like, don't let your money it's not going to waste, but enjoy the perks, really.
Yeah. Yeah, there are other channels that I follow, and I've thought about Patreon, but a lot of it is just to kind of support their efforts. You don't get the interaction at the various levels, and so I haven't kind of really done that. And if I did anything, I'd probably up my thing with the Patreon with WCBS. It's just, the amount of things that you get for that is, to me, is significantly higher than any other channels that I've really paid attention to, and I think that's good. I know Kendo had a lot to do with that. I know he and Jeff discussed this ought to be on Patreon, this ought to be on YouTube, and it is a marketing thing. It is kind of like you want to wanting more, leave them wanting more at various aspects. And I mean, obviously, me being a local fan and having met them before they did any of the Patreon stuff, I'm kind of in a different place than most people. But you know, Star Wars brought me into this channel, and it is nice to sometimes not talk about Star Wars because it's so depressing. It'd be a lot different. It's like, oh my God, The Last Jedi was the best movie. I mean, and mean it. You know, and the fan rating on Rotten Tomatoes was like 94% or something, as opposed to 49%. And it hasn't fallen in a while, and I'm getting suspicious of that. But it's like, okay, fine. Let's just kind of talk about Marvel. And although I'm getting burned out on all the superhero movies, so I'm going to talk about something different. If you're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
So since last time, my son and I we went and saw The Disaster Artist last Saturday, and last Wednesday we went to saw The Room, or was that the week before? That may have been the week before. I don't even know. It was the week before. I'm getting old and senile. Well, there is another showing that's supposed
Avoid
to
Tide Pods.
Is it tonight or next Friday? They've released The Room again. But I've seen The Room on video, and I've seen it with an audience, and it's a hell of a lot better experience with an audience. So if any of those movies are still available to you somewhere, either The Room or Disaster Artist, I highly, highly encourage you to go see them. Skip the nonsense that's come out. And we've talked about going to see Jumanji, but apparently my sister's in town this weekend, and so we're probably at my parents' on Saturday instead of seeing the movie. Because both my kids want to see Jumanji. And it looks like it's a lot of fun. It beats Star Wars, so that it's third week out. So Star Wars has been out 4 weeks. 4 weeks. It was in its fourth weekend. Jumanji was in its third, and it was number one. And it was like, yay. And then it was number one. It was 2 weeks in a row, and it more than doubled up on domestic sales. And then we get, Last Jedi pulled from China, and it's just like, come on, make some, just get back to storytelling and stay off your political BS, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You know what's crazy about Jumanji, when I really think about it or look at it, you really had diversity in that cast. If we were going to use that same term that the people, the SJWs and people in the media keep throwing around, diversity meaning like diversity in terms of like appearance, it essentially had diversity in its cast, and it did really well for itself. So Star Wars really, in terms of like, in terms of also like the fan ratings, it did pretty well for itself. So Last Jedi really should have no excuses for that.
Well, they have diversity in air quotes. That's the difference. Yeah, people want to talk about the original movies as if they were all white, and
which is far from true.
Right, they were predominantly white because that was the actors. Look where they filmed those in England. Okay, they took a lot of local, especially the first one. The first one was within a hair's breadth of being canceled by Fox, and because they were over budget and behind schedule. So the main cast the main cast was what, 7 people really, and really the concept was alien, right? Humans are just humans; they're not skin toned. They are in a race that there's one of millions of races in the galaxy, and you really get this in the second and third ones when they had actual budgets and things, and Lucas was in more control because he actually got the financial backing to those things. He put some of his own money up instead, so he didn't have to rely on the studio and got more of the receipts. So when someone's in makeup, do you know if they're what their skin tone is, what their melanin levels are? No, they look like some fish, or they look like something else, or they and people. We've gotten so hypersensitive to diversity, meaning skin tone, as opposed to the difference of ideas, that this forced diversity of, hey, we got to make sure we check all our quadrants off. Well, wait a minute, we don't have an Asian, so throw one in. Oh, wait a minute, what about the Native Americans? What about the Aborigines? What about the, At what point does your diversity stop? Oh, wait a minute, we don't have anybody under 4 feet tall. Let's get us someone in there.
We don't have any more midgets. We don't have any more wheelchair-bound people. We don't have somebody who may have or may have not potentially be sexually assaulted. We don't have a feminist. We don't have a damn it, what do they call that? No, they wouldn't put an MRA in there. My mistake on that one.
Right, and we wait a minute. We have a white guy who might be competent. Crap, we got to rewrite that character.
Nope, can't have that. He can't look too powerful. Nope, let's cuck him out to some chick in purple hair.
Right. Make him an ass bag. Turn him into an idiot or whatever. So, and that's unfortunate because it really, we start judging a movie. It's the content of the character, right? I know it's not February yet, but we can start quoting it in Martin Luther King now. People are now. It's not the content of their character. It's what's their skin tone. Oh, okay. You're too this. You're too that. You're not. It's not that you're a good actor or not a good actor. You're the wrong color. So, but anyway, so independent cinema. That's part of why I'm also going down to Atlanta is to help support Frank and Thug a bit. I bought the movie. I supported their Indiegogo. So did Kendo. And I haven't watched it yet. I need to before then. So I might, hopefully, I got a lot to do this weekend, so I don't know if I'm going to get a chance. But the other thing I want to talk about is, this should be hopefully a bit more uplifting. So Jeff talked about he said this more than once, my ability to talk about beer so much that's not fun anymore. I'm really not sure what he means by that, and I don't mean that sarcastically. Because, I'm a home brewer. I've been brewing off and on for 20 years. And then, so I'm quite passionate about it. It's, to me, I like to cook, and it's an extension of cooking. It's putting my high school chemistry together to good use. Understanding, how things work, and the malting, the malt process, and the mashing, and all that other stuff. So, when we did our beer reviews, I think in some ways they were kind of surprised the flavors I was picking out on beers I'd never heard of. The aromas I was getting, the ideas of what I should expect just based on the label. But I'm not a beer judge. I'm not a qualified beer judge. I have done some beer judging, but let me tell you, I've had judges pick out flavors, good ones, in some of my beers that I didn't know were there. So their nerd level gets a lot higher after me. So, but it was great. I liked that one of my own brews that we had over there at Phil's was pretty good. I have some more bottles of that. I need to make sure that they're still good, and I might take some with me to Atlanta. And I'm looking forward to getting back into brewing again. I brewed one beer last year, and once ski season's over, which will be into February, most likely around here, early, mid-March if it extends. I can't wait to get back in and kind of share, see what kind of feedback people want to know. So if you got any questions about brewing, does anybody have any questions right now?
Well, the only thing I really have or rather, the only thing I want to see is if you'll become a beer baron when Prohibition eventually takes over.
Going back to your comments about minimum pricing, that it's not only tobacco; they do it for alcohol. At least they do it for beer. I don't know if they do it for all liquor or just around here. That's beer at state minimums, and it's all over the place. I don't understand that. I don't. It's kind of like gas prices. You can't lower your gas price too much. I think you have to stay within 8 cents. It's very some places it's 4 cents. And on the other side, if your competitor raises your prices, and it's around here, it's within a radius. I don't know if it's half a mile or what. But if my costs haven't gone up, but my competitor raises their prices, why do I have to legally, by law, have to raise mine? That just seems so stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can, like I said, as a business, if you can afford to take that plunge, and you think it'll be the best move for you to lower your prices, even if it's a little bit compared to your competitor, that's on you, because that's how the market the free market should work. It should work on healthy competition amongst businesses, not necessarily larger businesses like corporations, but also smaller businesses. I grew up practically in an area where there was a lot of small businesses. Most of them are gone now. Like I used to know the owners' faces. I knew one that became eventually a bar owner. That business failed, and I hear different stories for why they failed. But one thing I always hear about is like, hey, look, how the taxes got higher on them. Keeping up with government regulations were usually the killer ones. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't try to become like anti-government or anything, because I do believe in healthy government, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, in that particular case, I don't know, it's just retardation on so many levels.
Yeah. No, big government's expensive, and you live in an area that has a very big state and especially in New York City government.
Oh yeah.
Outlawing salt and sugary drinks and all kinds of silly things. I actually, speaking of government regulations, I saw an article this past week about in England where they are. I forget when it's supposed to happen, but they're capping the size of meals at fast food restaurants. So, like your McDonald's, and there's a calorie cap on these things, and and it's based on the very horrible science about cutting calories to lose weight, and that's only marginally helpful in the short term. Once your body adjusts to the lower calorie intake, you'll actually gain weight, and it does make a huge difference what those calories are. So it's one thing to have calorie, you can't be above a certain amount, but then you're eating something that's loaded with corn syrup. Then if you have twice that calorie count, but you're eating something without starches, without simple sugars, or simple starches, more complex starches, a 6 ounces of sweet potatoes does something very different to your body than 6 ounces of russet potatoes, or 6 ounces of white rice or white bread.
That's true.
Or if you have salad, or it's just insane. And then this notion that 2,000 or I think it was 2,200 calories, I think for males is what they were saying. It's nutty. It's horrible science. It's been shown multiple times not to work long term. And now to have this as a government regulation, I look at it as stupid as the global warming hoax. And, people want to talk about eating, different things, and red meat's bad for you and all this other stuff. And it's, I remember, I've been around long enough to remember things go back and forth. Eggs were bad for you. Then they were good. Then they weren't so good. Then they weren't so bad. And then they're good. And then they're bad. And egg beaters are good. Egg beaters are bad. Broccoli. I remember when they said broccoli was going to cause cancer. And you had to eat like 40 pounds a day for 20 years. Just stupid stuff like that. And people freak out. But you know what? Breathing causes cancer. You do it too often, too much, you're going to get you're going to inhale carcinogens, and you're going to die of cancer. And when you start really looking at the science and who's promoting what, you can understand. We make pot illegal and other drugs because they're addictive. Yet, the drug companies push out drugs that are far more harmful to your body and far more addictive, Oxycontin and all these other things, Zoloft. How many times do we see in these crazy nut jobs that shoot up someplace? They're almost always on some kind of psychotropic drug. Almost
way too often.
Yeah, and it's like there's vets. I think our last statistic I saw was 22 vets a day. I don't know what the actual, I don't know how accurate that is. But we have a problem right now with our veterans who've been in multiple wars and things over the years, and they're dealing with PTSD, and they're killing themselves. And almost every single one of them, right, is on something. And it's like, obviously the drug didn't work. And, but heaven forbid we make pot legal. So instead of having some kind of downer to kind of keep the demons in their mind at bay, we're going to give them some addictive, expensive drug, because the drug companies are the ones pushing for the natural stuff to be illegal.
The sad thing about it is here in New York City, I really sometimes wouldn't be opposed to the idea of pot being legalized, but we have way too many idiots in the city, and I'll just use that term to describe them because
Yeah.
people just frankly like if you were to get like it's about having nice things. You can't really give certain people nice things in this world, and I'm not attacking a specific group. I mean in general, but you have idiots in every group, so. Those are the ones that you usually will take something nice. Like, let's say they do legalize pot. Well, now all of a sudden they're going to start smoking while driving. And, pot's a downer. So, and it can slow you down. I've smoked pot before you. So sometimes it just puts you in such a mellow mood. You may not react. Your reaction time can kind of get affected by it. So it's kind of like that thing just because it's legal. Now they think they're free to do whatever they want. And it's already bad enough that I don't think the penalties are as harsh as they used to be. So you'll see people smoke it out on the streets, but sometimes I'm like, okay, that's fine and all, but should you really be smoking that around hospitals, schools, and other public locations where, you have like elderly people outside and stuff? Like, come on, man, have a little more respect.
Well, in elderly people, you get people with glaucoma and other things that actually helps them.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't like the smell of it, and that's so.
Well, I don't like the smell of cigarettes either, and if a business decides we're going to be a smoke-free environment, I'm all for that. That's a public decision, right? It's the owners of that deciding. And I remember in the 70s, you couldn't go anywhere without smelling like a freaking ashtray. You go to the bowling alley, a restaurant. The non-smoking section of, like, say, a Denny's might be 3 booths. And some guy right behind you is lighting up after his meal. So it was more of I wouldn't say it was probably more socially accepted. And there was a campaign even in the 70s to get people to stop and how gross it is. And I know people who smoke, but they never smoke in their house because they don't want the smell in their house, right? So
imagine that.
But I don't have a problem with the government saying, in government buildings, and that's where it started. I remember when I was in Germany that you couldn't. The Congress said you couldn't smoke in government buildings, and but then they eventually extended it to, office. Now it's like you can't be within 20 feet of the entrance or something like that. So, and we can argue that all you want about they can go through the tax code because the business is an artificial entity and they're person only by government fiat and blah 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 blah. I get it, but I still think it's kind of silly. Let the market decide. There was ways around it. We used to go out to eat if we went somewhere, especially when we lived overseas when they were smoking a lot more. But we went earlier. When people weren't there weren't as many people, and you just come home and you just take a shower and clean your clothes. But on the flip side, I don't like paying for people's health care because they smoked for 50 years and now they got to have a loan taken out. So anyway. Enough of my ranting. I've talked too much.
Yeah, no, we've already lost our monetization thanks to you.
So that was my magic of beer section, and that was the last official topic that we had. So, if anybody wants to know anything about the brewing process, why I like beer, maybe I just ought to talk about it. I never liked beer until I really started to get into good beer and really understood how it can complement a meal. This is part of why in my beer reviews I do pairings. I try to do pairings. Sometimes I get stuck in a rut where I'm doing the same kind of pairing, but a lot of beers taste very similar. So if you're talking IPAs or a Pilsner or a Pale Ale or an Amber Ale or a Stout, there's certain flavor profiles that are expected of that style. And so there's certain things that are going to be in there. And so obviously a lot of foods are going to go with that same. If you get a bunch of stouts from, let's say a dry stout from a bunch of different companies, they're not going to taste alike. They're going to taste similar. So they're going to have because there's similar guidelines of what a dry stout is or what a milk stout is or what's a porter, what's a Baltic porter. And then some people just kind of throw curveballs. There's a black IPA is something that people have been doing for the last few years. It's a very interesting beer. I did a review of one, a Rogue one recently. I've made them. So this is also why I know what kind of malts are used in it, because I've made it. And I know what kind of malts you have to use to get the dark coloring without the bitter tannins that you get from roasted malt. So it's an interesting thing. Yes, I could talk ad nauseam about it. But I haven't been to a homebrew club meeting in years. I probably ought to go join one again. But it's a very fascinating thing for me. It's very interesting chemistry related. How all of the different what affects all of the things that go into affecting the taste and flavor and aroma and head retention and everything else. The water, the pH of the water, what chemicals are in it. How you do your mashing, which grains you're using, the techniques for sparging can all affect it. When you add hops, how you boil, what temperatures, everything affects beer. It's a lot easier to make wine than it is beer. And wine's not easy to make if you're going to make it from your own grapes that you grow, because there's a lot of things that you have to consider about your soil pH and what kind of roots you're going to put in, what kind of clones you're going to put in. But once you pick the grapes, how much fruit you're going to drop, there's not a whole lot to winemaking once you have the grapes set. And this is why a lot of people get into homemade wine of various fruits, because it's a heck of a lot easier than beer. It doesn't take nearly as long to make. And but if anybody wants to know about the complexities, even if we don't talk about it on here, and I do something on my own channel about that, on the beer reviews that I did with Kendo and Jeff and Phil, I talked a little bit about what the expectations, what I was looking for, why I was smelling the beer and swirling and all that other stuff, temperatures and enjoyment, why that's important. But it's a very brief explanation. I mean, I could probably talk 2 hours about yeast alone. So might consider that sad, but it's unbelievable. There are a lot of patented yeasts that give very different flavor profiles. But one of the things that I am looking forward to is because I bought a mixed pack of beers, and we actually went through a couple of them at Phil's house, but most of them I brought home. It's a New England IPA. This is a new style that I didn't know much about, and I'm looking forward to exploring. It's one of the things I want to explore this year and making some of my own. So it's a very fruity IPA. It's not very bitter, and it's fruity from the hops. It doesn't have fruit in it, and so it's a very interesting flavor profile. Low flocculent yeast. Good attenuation, because a lot of them are 8, 9, 10%. I think one of the ones I had over there was like 12.5. I think Slurmlord was like 12.5%. But because it's so smooth, you don't really notice how high an alcohol content it is. And that's without any distilling or anything else. So that's just naturally fermented to that level. So that's going to be an interesting exploration. So I may make videos on it. I don't know. So anybody have any other things they want to discuss before we wrap this puppy up? Because we're just about out of time.
Bye, Frank and Thug.
Bye, Frank and Thug. What's that other one, Kendo? The one where Danielle is
Which one?
A Nightmare Before. Once Upon a Nightmare?
Yes.
So
You're talking about the one where she swims in the pool naked?
yes.
Yeah, it's Once Upon a Nightmare.
Yes. I just got those last week. They autographed them for me, so that was pretty nice.
Yeah, me too.
Richard Tanner, he's I guess he and Danielle, I think, started a Buckshort Productions, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
So yeah, we'll put links to Frank and Thug, kind of, and if you like the show, and please give us a thumbs up and a like, and make comments. And speaking of which, that's the other thing I wanted to do. Do we have any fan comments that's not us? We didn't have as many views on last week's. Nope, it's mostly Kendo. Yes, Octavian, thank you.
No problem.
I because Octavia is his sister, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
So that was what was throwing me because I knew his sister had a very similar name, and I'm like, but he became Augustus. So yeah, for some reason, we only had 51 views on last week's video, whereas 2 weeks ago we had 167. But I have the BBC in the background. I don't have her, I have her behind Deadpool. So I'm trying to go for a more Star Wars theme on our thumbnails because that seems to attract the viewers.
Well, I don't know. Maybe because you covered the tits, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I had to because that top is see-through.
Oh.
I didn't want to get flagged by YouTube because of the thumbnail.
Because of tits. Well, nipples, actually, not tits. But
Yeah.
It's the same. Whatever.
So we've got several new subscribers over this past week. Thank you. Thanks for stopping by. And if no one has anything else, I will announce the BBC.
Do it.
All right. So this week's BBC is a young lady that hails from England. And her name is Demi Rose Mawby. Mawby.
That sounds sexy already.
She's only 5'2", curvy as hell. She's got a beautiful hourglass figure, and she is purportedly all natural. So she is our BBC for the week. I'll do my best to cut out a picture behind something to do with, or in front of something to do with Star Wars. Hey, I'm gonna try and do the thumbnails what people want, and I still haven't figured out this one guy who his SC Reviews is his name, is his channel name. He's from Australia, I think. All he does is very boringly read articles, and he has tens of thousands of views every day. It's incredible. I don't get it. I have multiple times tried watching his videos, and he's so boring. It's kind of like listening to Dan read something.
Jesus.
No inflection. Yeah, it's like, but yeah, there'll be 700 comments and 4,000 views in 6 hours. I mean, I subscribed because I kind of wanted to know, see if he does anything differently. And those of you who like comics, please stop by Diversity in Comics channel. Give him a check out. I know he has mentioned WCBS. I would love to get him and Jeff discussing a lot of the comic stuff. That would be a great. Would be less of a debate and more of they might disagree on, is it too late for Marvel? But they would a lot of agree on the way comics have been, the way they're drawn. It's not just the messaging. It's the cheap drawing. It's the, things that are just out of whack. And so, check out that channel out too.
Speaking of which, comics, now that you mentioned it, I will actually, for the first time, sat down and watched the movie Unbreakable yesterday.
Yeah.
And one of the main main themes and one of the main points of the movie is comic books. And Samuel L. Jackson's character, like, he really goes in and explaining, for example, the character's designs. Like, look at the villain, look at his eye structure, look at the how this particular comic cover was drawn, how it was very anatomically correct. And going into detail, and I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, that's essentially how, like, most, like, people who, like, really get into comics, like, they notice those little details like that. So I would actually like to hear, I know Jeff says, I've mentioned, like, numerous times when he has mentioned, like, little details about comics that I would otherwise, or most casual fans would not even give a second glance at or even realize.
Right.
Until, like, actually look at it. So I would actually like to hear a discussion between the two.
Yep.
Some type of nice collaboration would be great. I don't know how they would ever work that, but if they ever do, that would actually be an interesting listen.
Yeah, I agree. And because I don't know if he draws anything. I forget the guy does the Diversity in Comics, but he brings up a lot of the same kind of details that Jeff will talk about. So he's at least very aware of what's going on. So, all right, guys, let's wrap this thing up and put it to bed. So I have been your host, Brainmuffin the Lifting Nerd, and I did get back to the gym today, and it felt great. So with me has been Mr. Justin Beck.
I'm the man with the bootleg tan.
All the way from New York, Look Mill Pro.
Don't spay or neuter your pets.
And hanging out in the background, Kendo Slice.
I contributed nothing.
You kept us honest. And
Yeah.
bye,
It
Frank.
was BBC.
And by Frankenthug.
All right. Good night.